to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and tie master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. D'Souza can't join us. He's off doing something else today on what in this part of the U.S. is a beautiful day here on Memorial Day weekend. Here in the U.S. it's Memorial Day. And Aaron, I don't know what kind of weather you're having where you are. Anne-Marie, what's it like going in the UK right now? Are you guys enjoying the sun like we are here in the U.S.?
We certainly are. It's certainly lifting our spirits. But yes, it's the beginning of summer. So it's just warm, not too warm, just right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
This is my favorite time of year. Late spring. I love this
I can
time.
see why.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely.
It's been unseasonably dry here, which is welcome. Normally this time of year we're just dealing with constant rain and gray, cloudy days, but it's been really nice.
Ah, okay. All right. So everybody on this podcast is enjoying glorious weather. That shows we're all in the zone. We're all vibrating at the right level. That's a good thing. I love that. So anyway, Aaron Woolf he has an interesting background that I'll give us in a moment. But what it amounts to is that he's learned a lot through what he's done, as we all do in our lives, particularly in the world of sports, and he's learned how to apply it in other areas of life. But I'm not going to tell his story for him. I'm going to let him do it. So first of all, Aaron, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. Happy to be here. Good.
And tell us the story. How'd you get to be where you are today?
All right. Well, I'll start with my career, which I'm not going to go into like a half-hour conversation on my career because I've done a lot of different things. If you look at my life from the outside, you would probably diagnose me with maybe having a little bit of ADHD. And you'd probably be right. So after I graduated high school, I did college for about a year and a half and realized that college just wasn't for me. So I ended up going into the military. I served for almost 5 years in the Air Force. And when I got out of the Air Force, I wanted some sales experience because I knew I wanted to have my own business, but I knew I had to get comfortable with selling and dealing with people. So I got into the world of finance, selling subprime loans, which
oh my goodness,
wasn't a lot of fun. Yeah, and at that time I thought I was just horrible at selling, and as it turns out later I realized I'm not good at selling something I don't believe in.
Yeah, so, a lot of us discover that.
Yeah, and some people are good at it, and I've worked with some people that they knew we weren't doing anybody any favors, but they were just really good at just being able to sleep at night. Selling people that type of stuff. So I moved on from that and had a couple corporate jobs. Ended up working my way up in a corporation and supervisory position and management position, and was never really happy with anything that I was doing. I knew I wanted to be in business for myself. I wasn't happy making somebody else rich. So it was around 2014, I ended up just walking out of my job.
Wow.
And that's what my wife said.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I called home one day and I don't remember what even triggered it. It was something my boss said to me, but it was something that it wasn't anything out of the ordinary or something that I hadn't heard 100 times before, but it was just the last straw, and it had been weighing on me for years, just knowing that I needed to do something else. And I was just existing. I wasn't thriving. I wasn't living up to my full potential. And I knew that. So I called my wife and I said, I just can't do this another day. And I'm quitting today. And she kind of laughed and thought I was joking. And at the time we have 4 daughters too. So it wasn't just me that I was affecting. There was a lot of other people dependent on me. So I did quit that day. I knew I had to still pay the bills. So I went into something that I knew I could do and make some money right away. And I went into contracting. So I started a small construction company, didn't do a lot of big jobs. I got in with a local real estate management company. They manage a lot of rental properties. So I did a lot of rental maintenance. Again, nothing that I ever aspired to do, but at least I was on my own and was able to start learning how to live having your own business.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit. Well, let me go back then to when I was 6 years old. that was my career story in a very condensed nutshell. Now, the other side of my life that's I'm more passionate about is my athletics and sports side. I started Taekwondo when I was 6 years old, and I learned at a very young age the value of work ethic, the value of taking care of your body, how to exercise, how to eat right, and all those things from the time I was 6. So those lessons really stayed with me all up until now. It was just how I grew up. I'd been doing Taekwondo for almost as long as I've been walking. So it was kind of all those things were kind of second nature to me.
Yeah.
And with martial arts too comes the discipline, and putting yourself through adversity that normal people just don't do. And so I got into competing very heavily when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I won the Ohio State Championship 2 times.
Wow.
Went into national championships. My ultimate goal was the 2000 Olympics. That's what I had aspired to, and I didn't get there. I didn't quite get there, but I was in there with all the guys, some of the guys that were in the Olympics, some national champions. I fought the top tier people. I fought internationally.
Wow.
Beat
Very
the
good.
Brazilian national champion and
Ooh.
one of the U.S. Opens. So I was proud of what I accomplished. And when I got done competing, I'd been having to stay in a weight class for so long. I'm 6 foot tall. I fought at 154 pounds is what my weight class cutoff was. So I thought, now I want to start gaining weight. So I started learning how to lift weights. I'd never done that before. I'd never tried to build muscle. I was always trying to stay thin and quick and maneuverable. So I started a completely different mindset, completely different thing, and started lifting weights. So that's again, very condensed nutshell, but that's kind of my background. And with what I do now, I have a clothing company called Atlas Menswear. I was able to take my entrepreneurial side that I have in my brain that I knew I always had, and my sports background, and kind of combine those two in my clothing company, which is Atlas Menswear. It's dress shirts. I'm wearing one right now. It's dress shirts for men with an athletic and muscular physique. So everything's the dress shirts they're more room in the shoulders. They're tapered to the waist. They're just made specifically for a man that's got some muscle and has an athletic build, because there's not much out there for people like that.
Understandable. Yeah. Okay. And how did the whole mindset thing fit into that? Because you were referencing, and I referenced it too when I introduced you, how what you learned in sports, what you learned in Taekwondo and so forth carried over to that. Describe how that carryover happens.
Well, it's when I was younger in Taekwondo, you always you heard people say, this is a lesson that is going to serve you well in other areas of your life. And it was always kind of just left at that. It was always kind of, you have to figure out what that lesson is and how to apply that to your life. So it wasn't really spelled out for me, like, this lesson you're learning here, and this is how it's going to apply to your life. It wasn't until later, when I got older, when I look back on some things, and then some things that I was knew I was up against, it started clicking. Some of those lessons that I learned back when I was young in Taekwondo, and how those applied to different things that I was doing in business. I realized that, hey, I've already learned this. I just have to pull this lesson from what I learned back several years ago in Taekwondo and apply it. It's basically the same thing. I just, you have to apply it here, and it works well. And
so give us an example, like pull something out and just give us an example of showing how that worked.
One of the easiest ones, lines to draw, is working through adversity. In Taekwondo, when you're in a match, you get kicked in the face. That's immediate adversity right there.
I would say so. That qualifies, yes.
I don't know, for anybody that's never been kicked in the face or hit in the nose, your eyes immediately start watering. It can affect your breathing. You might get dizzy. You might see stars, or your vision could be blurry. It throws off your balance. It messes you up. But you can't just stop when that happens. You're there to win a Taekwondo match. So when you get hit in the face, you have to figure out a way to deal with this new set of circumstances, and keep moving forward with what you have. So in business, one of the most closely related things to that's happened to me is the launch of my clothing company. And I'll go back a little bit of history and let you know how that happened. So I decided to launch my company at it's an event called the Arnold Sports and Fitness Expo.
No.
I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's in Columbus, Ohio, about 2 hours from my house. It's called the Arnold. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the big the namesake. Right. It's a bodybuilding show, but it's also so many different sports, from a strongman competition. There's fencing, there's martial arts, there's gymnastics. There's actually more athletes that compete at the Arnold than there are at the Summer Olympics. It's a huge event. It's enormous. So they also have a vendor expo, and I wanted to launch my company at this vendor expo. And there's hundreds of vendors, from supplement companies to weightlifting equipment, and all sorts of things. So there's I think they said there's around 150 to 200,000 people that go through there over the weekend. It's unbelievable. So once I decided to launch my company there, I had a deadline. So I worked with my manufacturer. We went through research and development, made sure we had the shirt pattern right, ordered the shirts, paid my manufacturer to get those shirts done, paid for the hotel, and I rented a car to move all my inventory to Columbus. And it was actually 2 trips, so a lot of logistics there.
Wow.
And I was able to, there's a gym down there right next to the convention center where all the big names work out. And it's not really workout. It's more of an event to just see some of the bodybuilders and some of the bigger names that are there. And I was able to set up a little stand in that gym as kind of a pre-sale before the main expo kicked off.
Nice.
And now let me go back and tell you the date of this Arnold Expo. This was March of 2020.
Oh,
now if you remember March of 2020, you'll see what's coming and see how I got kicked in the face, or more like a kick in the gut.
Yeah.
So during this little pre-sale that I was doing in the gym, the energy in the gym was just electric, and I was flying high on adrenaline. I was so excited for the expo, so excited to launch my company, make some sales, get the brand name out there. And it was about 8 o'clock in the evening. The governor came on and said, we got to cancel it. And when I heard that, I thought there's no way, because that was one of the first things that ended up being canceled. Nothing had been shut down before that. This was like the beginning of when everything started shutting down. So it was a really strange thing to hear of things shutting down. So, I'm riding high, and even in the gym, when that was announced, everybody just kind of stopped talking. The energy was just sucked out of the room, and it felt a lot like getting hit in the stomach, with a kick. It kind of took my breath away. I had to kind of gather my thoughts, and I was from up here all the way down to here immediately.
Right.
And I remember going and sitting on a weight bench for about 10 minutes thinking, what am I going to do now? I spent all this money to get here, all this time and everything. And then I remembered the lesson that I learned in Taekwondo about, when you're in a match, you get hit in the face, you still have to keep moving forward. You have to deal with that set of circumstances that you've been given and figure out a way to get it done. So it was a few minutes that I sat there and kind of gathered my thoughts, and I stood up and I said, all right, now what can I do? So I knew everybody was already in Columbus, all the stars, all the bodybuilders, the athletes, the spectators. So I just thought, I'm just going to walk around the area of the convention center. And in the convention center, they were still having some of the events, the bodybuilding show. They just weren't allowing spectators in. So I tried to interact with as many people as I could, which is kind of counterintuitive to the reason they shut it down, but everybody was there anyway. So I just started going around talking to people like a maniac, and just letting people know what I did, and handing out cards and just networking and meeting as many people as I could. And I did a lot of work to get the brand awareness out there. And I actually met some pro bodybuilders that really liked my clothing, and some of them did some modeling for me eventually, and I formed a lot of friendships that really have been supportive of what I'm doing in my business. And so it wasn't a total loss. I actually made some positive things out of it. by pulling that lesson that I learned in Taekwondo and not, sitting down, feeling sorry for myself or quitting or you're kind of backing away. And I just kept moving forward and we made things happen.
Yeah. So you got through that first day. That's really the hardest part, getting through the very first moment that something happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What your mindset, where your mind goes right after that is it sets the tone for everything you do down the line. If I would have stayed sitting on that weight bench and trying to gather my thoughts and let myself get depressed or mad or whatever, that would have carried with me till to this day probably. But I felt that and I turned it around right away and I said, there's no way I can do that. I've come too far. I have too much in this already. I know what it's like getting kicked in the face and moving forward. So let's move forward.
That's really valuable. And I can speak from experience because you mentioned before how you sold those subprime mortgages. My business got wiped out by the subprime crisis.
Oh.
And I had the other reaction, the one that you were describing that you could have had. I had that one. Yeah. And I ended up suffering for the next 4 to 10 years, depending on how you want to measure it. Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It can really affect you. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool story. What happened afterward, though? Because, now you're in the midst of the pandemic. You got through the first 24 hours, but you still have this newly launched. You got this product line. What do you do at that point?
Yeah. Well, again, you just keep moving forward. The launch didn't go the way that I planned. I was expecting to make some sales at the expo and then having some money to put in some online marketing and either hiring somebody to do it or doing a lot of it myself to save some money. But I didn't know a lot about online marketing and I'm still learning, but I didn't get the brand recognition and the brand out there in front of a lot of people like I was expecting. So I had to kind of pivot and learn the online marketing really fast and you run some ads and make a lot of Instagram posts and Facebook posts and just moving forward from there. I did some photo shoots and like I said, some of the bodybuilders that I met, even the ones that didn't live near me, they took some pictures in my shirts and sent them to me for me to use, and they were really helpful. So I just used what I had and kept moving forward, and so far it's working. I'm in my third year, and people are the brand's growing. So
can you point to a particular moment in that series of events, both during and after the show, where you felt like you passed the tipping point?
I don't know if I ever felt like that. You mean a tipping point as far as success and failure, or a tipping point as far as I've arrived and I'm finally here?
No, success and failure. Like I'm going to make it versus I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really pinpoint. There's been kind of some small ones where the little moments of encouragement, like, oh, okay, great, this has happened, now I can move on to this. I remember my first online sale was a big deal. It was in the evening. It was right after the Arnold, a couple days after, and I have a website that's it's Shopify, so I have the app on my phone. And when you make a sale, it makes this cha-ching noise.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd never heard that before. And we're sitting in our living room, and my phone goes cha-ching. And I'm like, what was that? Did I just make a sale? So I looked it up, and I did make a sale. So I start jumping up and down, and my wife and daughters are all happy and clapping. So that was kind of a moment where okay, this could work. It's not I'm not where I want to be yet, but this is a step along the way. And I remember another moment was my first day that I had 1,000 website visitors. We were sitting again at the house in the evening, and I was watching. You can pull up your dashboard and see how many visitors you've had that day. And I was at like 980 something, and I told my wife, I was like, "Wow, this is the most I've had in one day." And we're watching it count up and tick up, another visitor. So it gets to 998, 999, and then it ticks over to 1,000. Again, we started jumping up and down, yelling and really excited. So there hasn't been a one point where I can look back on and say, yeah, this was the one main thing that let me know that things are going well. But just a little markers along the way.
Those are perfect, though. That's really the kind of thing I was hoping you would talk about, because those are the things that fuel us.
Yeah,
we get these little rewards, and if we can be present enough to celebrate them. Anne-Marie, we talk about that all the time, right? If you can find those little things to celebrate, it not only helps you juice up how you're feeling about stuff, but it gives you momentum, right? I mean, you carry through. You get it every day with what you do, Anne Marie. I mean, that's just part of what we go through as human beings, right? Oops, you're muted.
Isn't that the saying of the pandemic?
Yeah, right.
Sorry, one of my kids has come home, so they're really noisy, so I put myself on mute. But yeah, absolutely. Celebrate every little win and appreciate it, because you're just going to keep getting more of those, and they're going to mean the world.
Yeah.
Which sounds like what you experienced.
Right. Yeah. And there's also, it's not all, markers that are good. There's sometimes where, I've had days where the website visitors are real low, and you can go a week or two with really low sales, and then you start thinking, oh man, now am I done? What's going on? And then for some reason, something that maybe that I did, or just chance, it turns around and picks back up again. And right, you have to take the good with the bad. I heard someone say once that success and failure, or no, I'm forgetting how it goes now. Well, I'll remember it. Success and failure are both necessary steps on the way to success. I'm not saying it right.
No, but that's all right. I get what you're saying. I mean, there's a Will Smith one that I like a lot. He did a live feed to Instagram at one point where he was just kind of riffing on that exact topic. And he said the one thing that people don't realize, particularly about movie stars, is that they see the big success and they say, oh wow, he's so successful, but they didn't see all the failures leading up to the success.
Right.
So they don't realize what it took to get to the point, but they actually had that success.
Right. Kind of when people say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So Aaron, do you think the pandemic helped you in any way? Because everybody was starting like with fresh eyes and navigating their way through an online system. Do you think that was any help in the end?
Yeah, it definitely was, because when I first launched, I had the vision of growing my company, just kind of muscling it through, going to events, carrying boxes of stuff to things like the Arnold and different bodybuilding shows, and growing it that way. Where looking back, that's just not scalable. That's not something that's sustainable, and you can't really grow a company that way. So it forced me online where I need to be. I'm an online store. I don't have a brick and mortar, so it made me really focus earlier than I probably would have on growing my presence online. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and all those things. So yeah, it looking back, it did help me.
Yeah.
And those do play a valuable role, by the way. I mean, yeah, you can't really scale going to shows and selling stuff, but like you said earlier, one of the main reasons for doing those shows isn't to sell a bunch of stuff. It's to start establishing your brand and putting it into the minds of people who are the potential customers.
Right.
So that's where the value comes in for something.
Yeah,
like
you do have to do both. It's an online business, but you still need to get it out there in front of people, because you can sell clothes online, but people really love trying them on before they buy them too.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, that's where those things help.
So give us another idea of how the lessons that you learned from Taekwondo carried over. I mean, because not that what you gave us isn't any good. What you gave us so far is brilliant. No, but I'm just looking for more. I want more, man.
Yeah, I actually have an outline. I'd like to turn it into a book someday. I have an outline of probably 30 or 40 different individual sports analogies that I've made apply to my life. But another one would be personal development. In Taekwondo, you start out as a white belt. Mm-hmm. And when you first walk into the school, you don't know any of the customs. You don't know how they line up in the beginning class and bow. You don't know any of the techniques. You don't even know how to tie your belt. So everything is awkward and clunky, and you might be nervous or scared to go in, and it's not. It can be exciting, but it's not really fun. Mm-hmm. And if you can get past that initial awkwardness, then you start to see the customs, and you know how to bow. You learn how to tie your belt. You might learn your first kick, and then you get a little boost of confidence, and you start throwing that kick, and you're able to mix it up with some of the other white belts and beginners, and you learn your next kick, and you get more comfortable, and you get more confidence. That applies, in the weight room too. When you first start working out, you don't know what the equipment is. You might hurt yourself because you don't know how to lift safely. and again, it's real awkward and clunky. When you start a business, it's the same way. I'm not an expert in anything that I'm trying to do. I'm kind of teaching myself and learning from other experts. So I made plenty of mistakes. I felt awkward. It was kind of strange, and there were some days where it just it can be discouraging because you don't know what the heck you're doing. But if you just keep moving forward, that you're gonna get comfortable. You start to get a routine and learn a few things and build a little bit of confidence, and you just keep it going from there. And in Taekwondo, that you take that all the way to your black belt and beyond. And in business, as far as you want to go, you just keep building on that confidence, kind of like we referred to earlier. You get the 1,000 website visitors in a day, and then you make some more sales, and then it just keeps kind of growing. So yeah, the personal development is, that's another one that I'd like to explain to people that really has benefited me in my business.
Earlier today, I was having a conversation with a good friend and a longtime listener too, about something that she's doing, and we were talking about the importance of learning how to run a business, because it's not a skill that you learn in school.
Right.
There are no courses. Well, there are some courses. They're usually badly structured, but there are some courses at like the MBA level on how to run a business. God help you if you hire somebody who's gotten one of those. But really, it's one of those things you kind of have to learn on the job. And
pretty much, yeah.
And it's just you either focus on learning it or you avoid it. There's not really a lot of third, in the middle, in between ground there.
Yeah, and it seems like the MBA programs, they teach you how to work at a company, to be a manager in a company,
exactly.
Not really how to run your own business.
Right.
It's two different worlds.
Very, very different worlds. And the more that we can, as individuals who become entrepreneurs, the more that we can learn to just be willing to try. And there's the failure thing again, try and fail, and it doesn't work. And what can I do differently? And persisting. A lot of what you were telling with your stories was about persisting. You persist in the face of adversity, and okay, well, that didn't work, and I've got this bill to pay over here, and I have no idea how to solve that problem over there. What can I do right now? Well, I can do this thing, so I'll do that. It's just a constant juggling match, trying to figure out how do I get through this crazy maze of business.
Right, and it's interesting. You just said be willing to try, and that can be said, be willing to take a chance, and that's another analogy. That you just made me think of, in Taekwondo in a match, you have to be willing to, sometimes you have to take risks, especially when you're against high level competition. Anything you do could result in you getting knocked out. There's that back and forth, and each fighter is highly skilled. So really, when you throw a kick, you're taking a chance. He could counter and
Sure.
end the match right there. So. Right. But you can't be afraid of that. You can't. If you're afraid of that, you're not gonna throw the kick right. You're gonna hesitate, or you're gonna be a little bit tentative, and that's gonna get you hurt. So you have to be willing to take that chance, go at it 100%, and you'll be successful more than you're not if you keep that confidence and keep taking those chances.
Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid of it, you're actually going to increase the likelihood that it happens.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because like I said, you're gonna hold back if you're afraid, and you can't hold back. Once you commit to something, just like the kick, and like in business, you have to go after it 100%.
Yeah. It sounds to me like that's a better lesson than you could learn anywhere else anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a very important lesson too, because everybody can use that, no matter what they do. If they own their own business, or even working for somebody else, there's always chances that you're going to have to take, and if you hesitate, then it's bad news.
That's a theme that pops up a lot in conversations here on the program. The people who stay within what's often called the comfort zone, whereas those who are willing to take a step outside of it.
Yeah, the comfort zone, there's no growth that happens in the comfort zone. You have to step outside and be uncomfortable, and that's where you start growing. And yeah, that's something I've learned a long time ago too. In Taekwondo, you have to get uncomfortable. There's always something new to learn. There's always a new technique or something, and it's not comfortable to learn those. In the weight room, you can't grow unless you make yourself uncomfortable. Lifting weights to muscle failure is very, very uncomfortable. And to do that over and over, it takes a strong mind. And, if you don't get yourself into that muscle failure zone, you're just not going to grow. You're just wasting your time. So,
and explain what that means. I mean, not everybody's a weightlifter. So what
Sure,
are you
sorry.
saying muscle failure? Talk about what is that?
Yeah, well, there's different ways, depending on what your goal is. So some people lift just for strength and not necessarily for muscle size. And some people, like bodybuilders, lift for what's called hypertrophy, where it requires a little bit higher rep ranges. So you're doing, some people 8 to 12 reps. Reps means, like if you're doing curls, this is 1 rep, 2 reps. So hypertrophy requires a higher rep range, 8 to 10 to 12, sometimes 15 to 20. And you're going to the point where your muscle cannot do any more. And it burns. It's very uncomfortable. And to be honest with you, beginning weightlifters probably shouldn't do that and really don't have the ability to go to true muscle failure. I remember when I first started lifting weights, I thought I was going to muscle failure. I was just uncomfortable, which is a different thing. True muscle failure is something that's very extreme, and it's hard to get to. Actually, it's not every workout or every set that you can get to actual true muscle failure, because it's difficult to get there, and it's very, very uncomfortable.
This is actually an interesting opportunity. We don't really talk about weightlifting at all around here, but for somebody who wants to get into it for the first time, or they've been just kind of dabbling in it in those early stages, what do you recommend for somebody who's trying to do that?
Go easy. Don't go to the squat rack. That's somebody that does work out understands that, because the squat rack is not really anything that a beginner should be messing around with. If you're first starting out lifting weights, spend some time on the machines. There's nothing wrong with spending time on machines. If you haven't done anything like that before, you don't really want to concentrate on just free weights, because it's really not going to benefit you in the beginning. You have to get the machines are set to keep you locked in a good form. So you're going to learn what the good form kind of feels like by working on the machines. That way, when you do, after a few months, start going into the free weights, you kind of what that feels like, and the direction that you need to be pushing or pulling on the weights. But yeah, just start slow. Figure out what your goal is too. Like I kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago. There's different things you work towards in the weight room. Different things different people do. If you want to be a power lifter, there's certain things you have to do, and it's going to be completely different than the way a bodybuilder lifts. Power lifters typically do a lot lower reps with really high weight, 2-3 reps, and then that's it for that set, and then you rest for a while and do just a couple more. Where a bodybuilder will be doing a lot higher reps and getting that burn. I don't know if you ever heard Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about the pump. If you're doing curls and the blood starts filling up in your bicep, and it feels like it's just going to explode out of your arm, which sounds like it's not a good feeling, but it's a good feeling, because.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, it sounds awful. Actually, it sounds like, oh my God, you're about to keel over or something.
Well, it might be to some people. Maybe weightlifters are just kind of twisted in the head a little bit and like that pain.
I won't rule that one out.
Could be the case. Yeah, it very well could be the case. But yeah, when you get that pump going, it's great.
That sounds to me like your little cha-ching moment, because when you feel that, something's happening. You're hitting your goal.
Yes. When you have a good workout, because not all workouts are good. Sometimes you're just kind of dragging yourself through it. But when you hit that good workout, or even that good set, it's just, it gets the endorphins going. You accomplished something. You did everything perfectly in that set, and it's one of those things that clicks and just kind of propels you forward.
So even in weightlifting and bodybuilding and just doing general exercise in the gym, it's still about finding ways to celebrate what you're doing.
You celebrate what you're doing, and don't dwell on the bad things, but just use those to kind of make corrections as you move forward, and yeah, just keep going. Yeah.
So that leads me to one of my favorite topics. I'm going to be curious to see what your take is on it. I have long advocated the value of appreciation for everything in life
Hmm.
and on a, like a day-to-day basis. In the realm that we're talking about here, in the business realm, the sport realm, and so forth, where where does that fall into your feeling and your understanding about what you've accomplished over the years? To what degree do you appreciate the various milestones and experiences and so forth?
Yeah, I think appreciation is very important, like you said, and it's easy, at least for me, to get caught up in what I want and where I want to get to, rather than kind of every once in a while sitting back and seeing what I've accomplished and kind of being grateful and appreciative of what I've been able to do and what other people in my life have been able to help me do. And yeah, it's something that you can't lose sight of. You can't forget about that, because you don't want to always be looking forward. You have to look at and see what you've been able to accomplish, and that can help you move forward too. If you've seen what do I have here, how did I get that, and how will that help me and in my next steps.
And then the part that goes along with that, which is always the hard part, by the way, is, I mean, it's one thing to learn how to appreciate the things that go right, but the hard part is finding things to appreciate about the things that go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you learn to use the things that have gone wrong to your benefit, it's a lot easier to do. Uh, if if I could tell you or anybody, before you become a success, whatever that means to you, you're going to fail 100 times.
Mm.
There's because we just don't know the number. There's a certain number of times we're going to fail before we get there. We just don't know the number. So if you could look into the future and see, okay, I'm going to fail 100 times, are you going to try to push those failures off and avoid them, or are you going to get through them as fast as you can? Fail as fast as you can to get through those, and that's kind of the mindset that you have to have. I know I'm going to fail a certain number of times before I get to where I want to go. I just don't know the number, but it's a finite number, if you're looking at it in that sense. So just fail as fast as you can and get through them, and use those lessons from those failures to figure out what you're doing wrong, and then get through them and get to where success is.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like that Elon Musk has said. There's a number of things that Elon Musk says that I just kind of scratch my head and say, what the hell planet are you living on? But one of the things I love, and this is something he taught to his SpaceX staff, was fail early, fail often. And what he meant was they're trying to learn how to build rockets. He says, blow them up.
Yeah.
Make every single mistake you can as fast as you can make them. And look what he's pulled off. I mean, he in a very short period of time, he's pulled off having a rocket platform that is coming together far faster than anything that NASA ever did. I mean, it's just like, whoa, it's just blowing the socks off of everybody because they're failing early, failing often.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, he doesn't mind, because he knows when you get through those failures, you're that one step further towards where you want to be.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And
all right.
You're learning something on every single piece, aren't you?
What's that? I'm sorry.
You learn something along the way on every single failure.
You have to. Yeah. If you don't learn something from a failure, then it's just a failure. There's always a lesson to be learned.
That's a great point. So you've given us a couple of stories. I want another story, though. I want something that ties in to what you did with sports and how it carried over into your business experience as the head of Atlas Men's Clothing.
Yeah. So you want to hear the story, or I didn't get the beginning of that.
The story and the lesson behind it, and something that you were able to carry over, because I mean that's your theme. You took lessons learned from your early experiences with sport and you applied it to business. So I just want to hear another one of those kinds of stories.
Sure. Well, I do have some other analogies I can. This one kind of does play hand in hand with how I started my clothing company. It has to do with spotting opportunities. And so we'll go back into the Taekwondo. When you're in a Taekwondo match, the opportunities come and go very quickly, especially when you're against high level competition. You have to, in the early rounds or in the very beginning of the fight, you have to kind of watch for the tendencies of your opponent, see what they're doing, how they shift their weight, how they move their feet, look for tells, You're telegraphing on the techniques that they're going to throw, and then you have to start capitalizing on those opportunities, because they don't come often, and they come and go really fast. So you have to be able to see those and capitalize on them. In business, when I started Atlas Menswear, I saw the opportunity, because I always start my story of Atlas Menswear as saying I'm never the biggest guy in the gym. I'm not that monster that walks in and everybody, the whole place goes silent and looks at him. I'm not that guy, but I do have the shape. I've broader shoulders and a narrow waist. So I was always disappointed in the way shirts from the mall would fit, button-up shirts, because they're made more for the box. You have to get them big enough to fit your shoulders, then they pretty much hang straight down. Right. And it just looks real sloppy. So I knew I couldn't be the only guy that had that problem. So I started talking to guys at the gym and asking where they got the clothes and if they wear dress clothes. And some guys would say, I just don't wear them because they don't fit. And other guys that have to wear them say they have to take the time and money to get them tailored or custom made. So I thought, hey, there's an opportunity here. And, it sounds like a fun business to be in. I, very interested. And, I would deal with athletes that, I'm my customer, like they say, the hair club for men. I'm not the owner I'm not only the owner, I'm a client too.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe I should check them out. But, I'm one of my customers. So I took that opportunity, and, it was kind of awkward starting it because I don't even know how to use a sewing machine. So I knew
I love it.
How am I going to make a shirt, a custom shirt to fit the guys that that I'm trying to fit on. So I started listening to podcasts, fashion-based podcasts, and I ended up finding a fashion designer that didn't live too far away from me. And she and I did a lot of research and development and going to different gyms and measuring guys and coming up with a pattern for the shirts. And that's how that got started. But yeah, the opportunity was, spotting that and figuring out that that's what I wanted to do. Once that was there, I had to take it and go with it and attack it with everything I had.
And I love what you did. Yeah, you kind of swept past it fairly quickly in your description there, but I want to go back to it. You did something really important that people who have never dabbled in entrepreneurship might not recognize as being important. But before you launched or even considered launching a product line, you talked to people, to the people who might actually be the customers, to find out what their need was.
Right.
So often we imagine, okay, the bodybuilders, they must need a shirt that fits them. Not that would be a wrong conclusion, but I mean, that's kind of the way we do it. We go after it like, well, it must be true for them, so therefore that would be a good idea. But you don't actually know until you talk to them. And actually in talking to them, you can find out things that you didn't even take into consideration when you came up with the idea in the first place.
Right. Yeah. You have that preconceived notion in your mind that, there's a need out there, but until you verify that, it's just in your mind. It might not actually be a need, like you said. And that goes into some of the research, the market research. I had to do what they call competitive analysis. And, I wrote a business plan, and so I did a lot of searching online and a lot of Google searching, and found some other companies out there that claimed to kind of do what I was trying to do. But so I bought some of their stuff. In the beginning, I was just trying to find a shirt that fit. And so that's kind of how I started my competitor research, and it kind of grew from there, because I ordered some stuff and still wasn't happy with it. And but I wrote down those companies, and then I ended up putting it into an outline and then into an actual business plan, and looked at my competitors' pricing strategies and what their websites looked at and what types of products they looked at, and it went from just a list of who might have a shirt that would fit me to a business plan that these are all my competitors.
I get it entirely. I run speaking of being in a business that you know nothing about. You talked about you don't know how to run a sewing machine. I run a gardening service and maintenance business, and I have a black thumb. I have no gardening ability whatsoever. But I ended up buying my ex-wife out, and the long story there is that I helped her launch it in the beginning, and I had the business background. She knew the gardening, so I was kind of helping her, do stuff that way. And from the very beginning, we both made the assumption that our best customers were going to be, there are a number of very wealthy people who live in our area. We thought they were going to be the best customers. It turned out they were the worst customers. they were absolutely not our target market at all. We thought they would be, but and if we had stuck with that preconception, we probably would have been sunk. But the one thing we did right, that it was kind of, in some ways, it was a little bit accidental, but we did market research by just simply putting an ad in a local, it was like a penny saver type newspaper. And it started getting responses. And as you started talking to the people who were calling in, what we discovered over time was it wasn't the people who had the money who were the good customers. It was the people who'd been doing gardening all their lives and couldn't do it anymore. They were the good customers.
Oh, yeah.
But there was no way we would have found that out if we hadn't, quote, done the market research by just putting an ad. Now, were we actually trying to do market research? No, we were just trying to do an ad. But it amounted to the same thing. Doing the ad basically was a form of market research, which just goes to prove it doesn't take a whole lot to do market research. You don't have to have a panel.
Right. Yeah. And what people told me that I needed to write a business plan for my business. And I started researching how to write a business plan. And you get these, inch thick binders of somebody, what an example business plan. And I'm like, I don't want to do all that, and you do need to put some work into it, but it doesn't have to be, fit in an exact template of what you're going to find as examples online. You just need to know what market you're getting into, who your competitors are, and how you're going to do it better than them. That's, there's some financial stuff that you have to put into it, but yeah, it's the working knowledge of your business that you have to put into it.
And even before you get to that stage, you have to find out what the need is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to, like you said, I just started talking to guys at the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
And some guys said, I don't need to wear dress clothes. I don't ever wear them. And
valuable information, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of started probing a little bit more, and I would say, do you not wear dress clothes because you just really don't want to, or is it because nothing has ever fit, so you just get by with wearing t-shirts? And about half of the guys that say they don't wear dress clothes, it was because they were so disappointed in the way dress clothes fit. They didn't have any interest in trying it anymore.
Right.
And one other thing that I learned by talking to guys at the gym, especially when either their girlfriends or wives are around, I'll backtrack a little bit. I thought my primary customer was the men. And in a certain sense it is, but when, especially at an expo or something, when a man and a woman, a man and wife comes up to my booth, I'm selling to her. She's the most important person that I need to convince that he needs this shirt. So, and that's something I didn't realize, I didn't take into account at the beginning. The woman is the decision maker. And even if the guy doesn't want to dress up, if she sees him try that shirt on and he looks better in that shirt than he's ever looked in any other shirt, he's buying that shirt, whether he wants to or not.
So true.
Right. Voice of experience there, Anne Marie. I love it.
Yeah. So once I gained that knowledge, then I kind of tailored some marketing based on that, because I was always marketing thinking I'm selling to guys, and it's not necessarily the case. I'm selling to the women just as much.
Mm-hmm. Is there also a female sports line for you? A female shirt
line?
Not
yet. I've people have asked me that, because apparently women have the same trouble. When they work out and you get different shapes in different areas. There's not a whole lot out there. There's gym wear. There's the stuff that you wear in the gym, but nothing really formal or dressy that fits. So maybe I'll do an Atlas women's wear, or maybe I just do something like that under the Atlas line, but not right now.
I wouldn't be surprised if you do that at some point.
I think that's a genius idea, because I think men will probably buy one shirt, women will buy 5.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And every single color in the line too.
Absolutely.
As long as it's in their color wheel, they're buying it.
If we buy something that fits and looks great, we'll get every color and we'll get spares for when they run out.
That's a good idea. Maybe I'll have to get a hold of my fashion designer, and we'll come up with a women's line real quick and see what happens.
Why not? Yeah. You don't even have to come up with a whole line. Come up with one item just as a market test. See what happens.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see.
That's how you expand. That's how you build a business, right? Because you're thinking, what's my next step? Where do I go with my next step?
What I envision my next step, right, in the Atlas menswear at least, is I want to do some kind of supplementary items like undershirts. I'm kind of researching some undershirts right now. I have one on that will go with you. Kind of be you buy the shirt and then you buy the undershirt to go with it, because the shirts are they're a lot more form fitting than any other shirt. So if you wear a regular t-shirt under it, it can kind of bunch up and create lumps in the shirt and completely destroy the whole purpose of wearing a more of a form fitting shirt. So something that's more like a spandex and cooling and something like that I'm looking into. So yeah, that's one of the things that the next steps.
So there's a perfect example of how you look at where you're at right now with what you're doing and ask, where's the next step?
Yeah. And you go ahead.
Sorry, Aaron, I was just wondering, but surely there's the same problem with the bottom half. If you've got somebody who's got big thighs,
yes,
you can't necessarily get into normal trousers and shorts.
Absolutely. There's exactly that same problem, because a lot of the especially bodybuilders, they do have the big thighs, like you said, but their waist doesn't get bigger with those thighs. Their waist is actually pretty small. It's right now, I would love to get into making pants for muscular guys, but I need to. The research and development is very costly and very, very time consuming. So I need to move forward with the shirts right now with what I have into the research on that and make some of that money back so I can move forward with some of the more custom lines. Some of the stuff like the undershirts aren't as custom, so it's not as hard to get a manufacturer to make some. The shirts that I do, the pattern is 100% proprietary. It's my pattern, so nobody else in the world has this pattern. So when I go to a manufacturer and say, I need you to make this shirt with this material, everything's got to have some kind of a stretch. They say, okay, the minimum order is 10,000 shirts.
Yeah,
well, I'm not anywhere close to 10,000. So that's one of the toughest things about having a clothing line with custom stuff is working with the manufacturers and minimum order quantities. And if you go below those minimum order quantities, then you're paying a lot more per unit.
Right.
So your margin is just squeezed real thin. So it's tough. It's tough growing something like that.
Yeah. You just laid out beautifully too why it's important to constantly be learning about your own business.
Yeah. And that's again something when I first set out, way 3 or 4 years ago, thinking, I want to be able to sell shirts for athletic guys. You don't really think of stuff like that. It sounds like such a simple concept. Just come up with a shirt and have somebody.
There you go.
Yeah. It's never that simple. And the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you realize what you still need to learn. When you get into it, there's so much more than what you originally thought there was.
But is it worthwhile?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I love what I do. And the guys that I talk to, the customers, we all have something in common. I have something in common with all my customers. We work out, we take care of our bodies, we watch what we're eating, and so we already all have something in common. So it's easy to start a conversation and relate to all those guys.
Yeah.
I've got a question. Aaron, do you use visualization at all? Have you got like a vision of where you are going to be in like 10 years?
I've done that as far as like a visualization board. I've done some things on my computer, put some things together. The business plan that I did, it kind of had some things like that. But as far as I know, some people that they put stuff all over their office walls, and like this is where I want to live in 10 years, and this is the car. I haven't done anything like that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's probably something that I would benefit from. I haven't really done that.
Yeah, I mean, vision boards and things like that don't seem to inspire me. So I just like put myself in where I want to be and I feel how I want to feel. And I just feel like I know I'm going to get there. So I just wondered if like you visualize selling your 10,000 shirts in 1 week and how that's going to feel when you get there.
Yeah, that's something maybe I misunderstood what you were saying. I would call that visualization or mindset. That's another analogy that you can come back to in Taekwondo, at least when you aspire to the Olympics, like I was doing, you do visualize that. You do visualize being an Olympic champion. you have to put yourself there. I know some UFC fighters I've heard that once they win the championship, I think Conor McGregor, which most people know who Conor McGregor is. When he finally won the UFC championship, he was interviewed in the ring by Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan said, "Is it what you imagined? Is it?" And he said, "I feel like I've already been here because I've visualized this every day. This is something I've already done because I've imagined it so vividly and so hard. It's exactly what I expected."
That's very cool.
Yeah.
This has been really good. I've really enjoyed. I know, Emery, you've enjoyed it too. We've really enjoyed just hearing your story and the lessons you've learned.
I've enjoyed
along
it
the
too.
way.
Yeah,
It's really good. Got to get a couple pieces of information. First of all, Atlas Menswear. How do people? You got to have a website. I imagine you're selling this stuff. Yeah. How do they find it?
Yeah, it's atlasmenswear.com. It's just ATLAS menswear.com, and there's links to my Instagram and Facebook on the website. And I do run specials every once in a while, so get on the email list and just check it out.
Do you mentor people who are trying to do something of their own in business?
I haven't really formally. People do ask advice anywhere from how do you start your company to how do you do bookkeeping, and so I'll give people, I freely give advice. I'm not really secretive on anything, and even some of the posts that I do on social media are kind of behind the scenes type things where I'll show me trying to pack my shirts because I send all the orders out myself. So I'll give behind the scenes stuff like that, and I'm not really secret. Some stuff I'm secretive on. I'm not going to give away, but most things.
You're not going to give away the pattern, I'm sure. But
no, that's locked up somewhere.
Very good stuff. One other thing I wanted to tell you that I make it a point to tell all of my guests here on the show, because you, like so many other people, you are in business, but you're a giver. You do the podcast, like you were talking about, you do the social media. I'm sure you do posts, you do a variety of things, putting out information, helping people to understand, things that they need to understand. Maybe people within the weightlifting industry. I mean, you have a whole niche that you interact with on a regular basis. You're constantly feeding them all kinds of useful stuff. We often don't get recognition for the people that we reach that we never know about, because they're people you've never met, you've never seen, who you've helped. Maybe you helped because they purchased something from you, or maybe just gave them some ideas on how to improve their technique when they're in the gym or whatever it might be. So I like to take a moment to basically appreciate that. So on behalf of those people you've never met and you've never seen, thank you for what you've been doing and what you're continuing to do, because you are making a difference in this world.
It's my pleasure, and that's one of the things I set out to do, is make a difference in some way. My small little way, make a difference in as many people's lives as I can. So I appreciate that. And same to you. You're the podcast that you do, and some of the guests you've had on have been beneficial to me. Keep it up. I really appreciate what you guys do too.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Emery, I often like to have you summarize it. Pick out the number one thing that really jumps out to you today about what we've been talking about. That says, wow, yeah, that's the thing I'm carrying away from this.
There's two things I've taken. The first one is find your passion and don't be scared to build around your passion into your employment, into your financial streams, because it sounds like it's so worthwhile and the self-satisfaction. So that's what I've taken from here. But also I've loved hearing about a story where lockdown, a very hard situation for a lot of people, turned into such a positive. I love those stories. So thank you very much for sharing, Aaron.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Good stuff. I love that. Great summary there, Anne-Marie. So thank you guys very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.